Captain Jinwoo Park opened his eyes slowly. The bright lights of the medical bay made him squint. His head felt heavy and his mouth was dry. This was normal after waking up from cryosleep. But something felt wrong. "Captain, you need to see this right now." Mina Ko's voice came through the ship's communication system. She sounded worried. Jinwoo sat up on the medical bed. His body felt stiff after the long sleep. He put on his uniform and walked to the bridge of their ship, the Persistence. The ship was not very big, but it was strong and reliable. It was made for long trips to human colonies far from Earth. When he reached the bridge, Mina Ko was standing at her navigation station. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking a little. Tae-ho Kim was at the computer controls typing fast on his keyboard. The ship's main screen showed space around them, but something was very wrong. "Where are we?" Jinwoo asked. "That's the problem, Captain," Mina Ko said. "According to our star maps, we're in the Nexus quarantine zone." Jinwoo felt his blood turn cold. Every person in the galaxy knew about the Nexus zone. It was a place where no ship could go and survive. The Galactic Council had made it forbidden 847 years ago. Ancient aliens had lived there long ago. But their technology went wrong and made the space very dangerous. Ships that went there were destroyed by strange forces that no one understood. "That's impossible," Jinwoo said. "Check the navigation again." Tae-ho Kim looked up from his computer. "I've checked everything 3 times, Captain. Our jump coordinates were correct for the supply run to Colony 7. We should be nowhere near the Nexus zone, but here we are." "How long were we in cryosleep?" Jinwoo asked. "That's another problem," Tae-ho Kim said. "Our ship's clock says we've been traveling for 6 months. But our bodies show we were only asleep for 2 weeks, just like we planned." Jinwoo walked to the main screen. In the distance, he could see huge structures floating in space. They were clearly not natural. They looked very old, and were made by someone with technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. The structures were dark, but they seemed to move in ways that hurt his eyes to watch. "Sir, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors," Mina Ko said. "Multiple ships approaching our position." On the screen, several alien ships appeared. They were sleek and silver, with strange curves that made them look almost alive. Jinwoo recognized the design from his training. These were ships from the Kalani Empire. "Open communication channels," Jinwoo ordered. A voice came through the speakers. It sounded like it came from someone used to giving orders. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Velith Karan of the Kalani Imperial Fleet. You are in violation of Galactic Council law by entering the Nexus quarantine zone. Prepare to be boarded." "This is Captain Jinwoo, Park of the human ship Persistence," Jinwoo replied. "We did not enter this zone intentionally. We were traveling to Colony 7 when we somehow ended up here." There was a long pause. Then Commander Velith Karan spoke again, and this time her voice sounded different. Surprised, maybe even scared. "Did you say human ship? That is impossible. No ship has survived passage through the Nexus zone in almost 1,000 years. The spatial anomalies destroy everything that enters." "Well, we're here," Jinwoo said, "and we're fine." Dr. Soyeon Lim came onto the bridge. She was the ship's doctor and scientist. She looked confused and worried. "Captain, I need to talk to you," she said quietly. "I've been checking the medical records from our cryosleep. There's something very strange." The Kalani ships were getting closer. Jinwoo could see them clearly now. They moved carefully as if they were afraid of something in the space around them. "What did you find, Doctor?" Jinwoo asked. "The DNA samples I took from the crew before we went into cryosleep don't match the samples I took when we woke up," Dr. Soyeon Lim said. "There are small changes. Very small, but they're definitely there." Tae-ho Kim stopped typing and looked at her. "What kind of changes?" "I don't know yet," she said. "But something happened to us during our journey. Something changed us on a genetic level." Commander Velith Karan's voice came through the speakers again. "Captain Park, we are coming alongside your ship. Our scans show that your vessel is undamaged and your life signs are normal. This should not be possible. We need answers." Jinwoo looked at his crew. Mina Ko was still checking and rechecking their navigation data. Tae-ho Kim was running tests on all the ship's systems. Dr. Soyeon Lim was looking at medical data on her portable computer. "Captain," Mina Ko said suddenly, "I found something in our computer's memory banks. There are navigation logs that I don't remember making. They're in my voice, but I have no memory of recording them." "What do they say?" Jinwoo asked. Mina Ko's face went even more pale. "They talk about something called the Watchers. They mention seeing impossible shapes during our jump through space." But Captain, I don't remember any of this. The Kalani ships were very close now. Through the main screen, Jinwoo could see the bridge of the lead ship. Commander Velith Karan was a tall alien with blue skin and silver hair. She was looking at the Persistence like she was seeing a ghost. Captain Park, she said, my science officers are telling me that your ship is surrounded by quantum energy patterns that should have torn your vessel apart. Yet you sit there talking to me as if nothing unusual has happened. Dr. Soyeon Lim looked up from her computer. Captain, I'm reading some very strange energy signatures from those structures in the distance. They're not just old technology. They're still active, and they seem to be watching us. Jinwoo felt a chill run down his spine. The Persistence was a good ship with a good crew, but they were explorers and traders, not soldiers or scientists equipped to deal with ancient alien mysteries. Commander Karan, he said into the communication device, we need to work together to figure this out. We're as confused as you are about how we got here. Very well, Captain, the alien commander replied. But know this. The Nexus Zone has been sealed for good reason. If you have found a way to survive its dangers, the entire galaxy will want to know how. And not all of them will be friendly about it. As the Kalani ships moved into formation around the Persistence, Jinwoo wondered what they had gotten themselves into. Something was very wrong about their situation. And he had the feeling that their problems were just beginning. Captain Jinwoo Park made a decision that could get him in serious trouble. The Galactic Council had ordered him to stay on the Kalani ship while they figured out what to do. But he needed answers, and those answers were in the ancient structures floating in the distance. I'm taking a shuttle to investigate those ruins, he told Commander Velith Karan. My crew and I need to understand what happened to us. The Kalani commander looked at him for a long moment. That would be against direct orders from the Council. Those structures are extremely dangerous. But we survived getting here when no one else could, Jinwoo said. Maybe we can survive going there too. Commander Velith Karan had been thinking the same thing. Her own curiosity about the impossible humans was stronger than her fear of getting in trouble. I will come with you, she said. My ship will provide escort. But if we die out there, it's on your head, Captain Park. Dr. Soyeon Lim and Taeho Kim joined them in the shuttle. As they flew toward the ancient structures, the space around them seemed to change. Colors shifted in ways that made no sense. Distances became hard to judge. The sensors are going crazy, Taeho Kim reported. It's like space itself is unstable here. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see the structures more clearly. They were huge beyond imagination. Each one was the size of a small moon, made of materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange patterns covered their surfaces, patterns that hurt to look at directly. There's an opening in the largest structure, Dr. Soyeon Lim said, pointing at the main screen. It's perfectly sized for our shuttle. That's not possible, Commander Velith Karan said. How could it know the size of our ship? As they approached the opening, lights began to glow along the structure's surface. The lights formed pathways leading to what looked like a docking bay. It was clear that someone or something wanted them to land. The shuttle settled onto a platform inside the structure. The moment they landed, the opening sealed behind them. Atmosphere flooded the bay, and sensors showed it was safe for both humans and Kalani to breathe. This place has been waiting for visitors, Jinwoo said quietly. They left the shuttle wearing protective suits just in case. The interior of the structure was like nothing any of them had ever seen. Walls curved in directions that seemed impossible. Corridors led to places that should have been inside each other but somehow weren't. The architecture is manipulating space-time itself, Dr. Soyeon Lim said, reading her instruments. This structure exists in multiple dimensions at the same time. As they walked deeper into the structure, they began to see signs of the beings who had built it. Strange symbols covered the walls. Devices that might have been computers or art or something else entirely lined the corridors. Then they heard the voices. They came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking directly into their minds rather than their ears. The words were in no language they knew, but somehow they understood the meaning. Welcome, children of the distant world. We have been waiting for you. Lights began to gather in the air in front of them. The lights took shape, becoming tall figures made of pure energy. These were the beings who had spoken to them. We are the eternal observers, the voices said. We are what remains of those you call the predecessors. We have watched this space for countless years, trying to understand why our greatest achievement became our greatest prison. Commander Velith Karan stepped forward. You're the ones who built the zone? Who made it so dangerous? We built defenses against something far worse than any danger, you know, the energy beings replied. But our technology became corrupted. Instead of protecting the galaxy, it became a trap that destroys any who enter. Dr. Soyeon Lim was scanning the beings with her instruments. You exist as pure consciousness now. What happened to your physical forms? We gave them up long ago to become one with our technology, the observers said. It was the only way to survive when our defenses turned against us. For thousands of years we have studied the zone's effects, trying to find a way to repair what we broke. Tae-ho Kim was studying the walls around them. Why didn't your technology affect us? Why could we survive when others couldn't? The observers moved closer to the humans. Their energy forms pulsed with what might have been excitement. Your species is unique, they said. Your brains evolved on a world with unusual quantum properties. This gives you a natural ability to navigate spaces where reality is not stable. You can perceive and interact with dimensions that other species cannot even sense. But that doesn't explain everything, Jinwoo said. How did we get here? Why don't we remember our journey properly? The observer's forms grew brighter. You were not brought here by accident. Your ship was guided by quantum echoes, traces of ancient distress signals that only minds like yours could interpret. Someone or something led you to us deliberately. Who? Commander Velith Koran demanded. That is the mystery we cannot solve, the observers admitted. The signals came from the deep void beyond your Galactic Council's space. From regions where even we fear to look. Someone wanted you to find us, but we do not know who or why. Dr. Soyeon Lim felt a chill run through her. Are you saying there's something out there that's been manipulating us? We believe so, the observers said. And we fear it may be connected to the original threat we tried to defend against. The enemy that forced us to build these defenses in the first place. Tae-ho Kim looked at the data flowing across his portable computer. Your technology didn't just change our DNA, did it? It changed our memories too. The modifications to your genetic structure were necessary for survival in this space, the observers explained. But the changes to your memories were not our doing. Someone else has been altering your recollections, hiding the true nature of your journey from you. Commander Velith Koran's weapon was in her hand, though she didn't remember drawing it. If someone has been controlling humans, it could be an act of war against the entire galaxy. It could be something much worse than war, the observers said ominously. The beings we originally fought were not from this reality. They came from spaces between dimensions, consuming entire civilizations to feed their endless hunger. We thought we had defeated them, but if they have found a way to influence your species, the implications hit all of them at once. If something from outside reality was using humans as pawns, then every person in the galaxy could be in danger. We need to get this information back to our people, Jinwoo said. Both humans and the Galactic Council need to know what we're dealing with. Before you go, the observers said, there is something else you must understand. The modifications made to your crew were not random. They were preparing you for a specific purpose. Your minds have been enhanced to interface directly with our technology. Dr. Soyeon Lim stared at the energy beings. Interface how? You can become like us, the observer said. Join your consciousness with the zone's defenses. Help us strengthen the barriers that keep the ancient enemy at bay. But the choice is yours to make. As they returned to their shuttle, the crew of the Persistence had much to think about. They had found answers, but those answers had led to even bigger questions. Something powerful was manipulating events from the shadows, and humanity might be the key to either saving the galaxy or destroying it. The worst part was knowing that they still didn't remember everything. Somewhere in their lost memories were clues about who was really behind their journey to the Nexus Zone. And until they recovered those memories, they couldn't be sure who they could trust, including themselves. When Captain Jinwoo Park and his team returned from the ancient structure, they found that everything had changed. The space around the Persistence was now filled with ships, human ships. Admiral Hyunwoo Seo had arrived with a full fleet, led by the massive flagship New Seoul. The ship was 3 times larger than anything the Kalani had, and its weapons were clearly visible. This was not a rescue mission. This was a show of force. Captain Park, Admiral Hyunwoo Seo's voice came over the communication system. You will report to the New Seoul immediately. We have much to discuss. Commander Velith Koran looked worried. Captain, this changes the situation significantly. If your government is claiming the zone as human territory, I don't know what they're thinking, Jinwoo said honestly. This wasn't supposed to be a military operation. As he prepared to leave for the flagship, Dr. Soyeon Lim pulled him aside. Captain, I've been analyzing the data from our visit to the observers. I found something troubling in our ship's computer logs. What is it? The quantum signatures from our journey don't match what should be there for a first visit to the zone, she said. The patterns suggest we've been here before. Multiple times. Jinwoo felt his blood turn cold. That's impossible. We would remember. Not if someone has been erasing our memories each time, Dr. Soyeon Lim said quietly. On board the New Seoul, Jinwoo found himself in a meeting with people he had never expected to see. Admiral Hyunwoo Seo was there, along with Dr. Yoonji Nam and several other high-ranking officers. But the person who surprised him most was Engineer Do-hyun Lee, the man who had modified the Persistence's quantum drive. Captain Park, Admiral Hyunwoo Seo said, "What you and your crew have accomplished is remarkable. You've given humanity access to the most strategically important region in the galaxy." "Admiral, with respect, we didn't accomplish anything," Jinwoo said. "We were manipulated into coming here by forces we don't understand." Dr. Yoonji Nam stepped forward. She looked different from when Jinwoo had last seen her on Earth, more confident but also more secretive. "Captain, we need to discuss the modifications made to your ship," she said. Engineer Lee's work was not experimental. It was based on years of research into human neural capabilities. Do-hyun Lee smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Your ship wasn't the first one we sent to the zone, Captain. It was just the first one to survive long enough to make contact with the observers." Jinwoo stared at him. "You've been sending ships here? How many crews have died because of your experiments?" "Acceptable losses," Admiral Hyunwoo Seo said coldly. "The strategic value of the zone is beyond calculation. Control of this region gives humanity a significant advantage over our enemies." "What enemies?" Jinwoo demanded. "We're part of the Galactic Council. We're supposed to be working together." "The galaxy is not as peaceful as you think, Captain," Dr. Yoonji Nam said. "The Threnody hegemony has been building weapons that could destroy entire human colonies. The Vorthan Republic has been secretly negotiating with species that hate humanity. We needed an edge." Meanwhile, back on the Persistence, Mina Ko was making a discovery that would change everything. While going through personal files, she had found encrypted messages between her sister, Commander Yuna Ko of the New Seoul, and unknown contacts. The messages talked about Project Deep Eye and mentioned using human crews as unwitting test subjects. Worse, they discussed memory modification techniques that could make people forget entire experiences. "Taiho," she called to her friend, "I think my sister is involved in whatever's been happening to us." Taeho Kim looked at the messages on her computer. "These dates go back months before our mission. Mina, I think your sister has been part of this conspiracy from the beginning." On the New Seoul, the meeting was getting more tense. Captain Jinwoo Park had learned that a secret organization within the human colonial fleet had been experimenting with sending ships into the Nexus Zone for over a year. "You used my crew as test subjects," he said angrily. "You wiped our memories and sent us into danger without our knowledge or consent." "We saved your lives," Engineer Do-hyun Lee replied. "The memory modifications were necessary. Crews that remembered their previous trips to the zone developed psychological problems. Some went insane." "How many times have we been here?" Jinwoo asked. Dr. Yoonji Nam consulted a data pad. "This is your 4th successful entry into the zone. The previous 3 times you made contact with the observers, but were unable to establish stable communication." "We had to keep trying." Admiral Hyunwoo Seo stood up. "Captain, what you've learned from the observers is invaluable. The ability to interface with their technology could give humanity the power to defend itself against any threat." "And what about the threat the observers warned us about?" Jinwoo said. "Something from outside reality that might be manipulating us?" The room went quiet. Dr. Yoonji Nam and Engineer Do-hyun Lee exchanged glances. "What threat?" Admiral Hyunwoo Seo asked. Jinwoo told them everything the observers had revealed about the ancient enemy and the quantum echoes that had guided the Persistence to the zone. As he spoke, he watched the faces of the people around him. Most looked shocked, but Dr. Yoonji Nam and Engineer Do-hyun Lee looked worried in a different way. "You knew," Jinwoo realized. "You knew about the signals from the void." Dr. Yoonji Nam nodded slowly. We detected unusual quantum patterns coming from unexplored regions of space. That's what gave us the idea to try sending ships to the zone. We thought the patterns were just natural phenomena. But they weren't natural, engineer Do-Yun Lee admitted. The more we studied them, the more we realized they were artificial. Created by something with intelligence far beyond our understanding. Admiral Hunwoo Seo looked pale. Are you telling me we've been taking orders from an alien intelligence? We don't know, Dr. Yoonjinam said. The signals were subtle. They seemed to be giving us information about how to modify our ships to survive in the zone. We thought we were just improving our technology. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the new Seoul. An officer rushed into the meeting room. Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting massive energy readings from the void beyond Council space. Something very large is moving toward our position. Through the ship's main screen, they could see lights appearing in the darkness of deep space. The lights were arranged in patterns that seemed familiar, but wrong somehow, like a picture that had been turned inside out. Dr. Soyeon Lim's voice came over the communication system from the Persistence. Captain, the observers are trying to contact us. They say the ancient enemy has awakened. Our presence in the zone has somehow broken part of their prison. The thing approaching from the void was enormous. As it got closer, space itself seemed to bend around it. Stars flickered and went out. The laws of physics appeared to break down in its presence. What have we done? Admiral Hunwoo Seo whispered. Commander Velith Koran's ship was the first to detect the entity's true nature. All ships, she broadcast on emergency frequencies. That thing is not from our universe. It exists in dimensions we cannot perceive. Our weapons will be useless against it. The crew of the Persistence watched in horror as the Void Harvester, as the observers called it, emerged fully from the spaces between realities. It was a creature of living darkness and impossible geometry, hungry for the energy of inhabited worlds. Captain Jinwoo Park realized that everything they had thought they were doing was wrong. They hadn't been exploring or defending humanity. They had been unwitting pawns in a game played by beings beyond their understanding, and now that game was about to end with the consumption of everything they held dear. Get me a connection to all ships, he ordered. Human, Kalani, Council forces, everyone. We're going to need to work together if we want to survive what's coming. The hidden agenda was finally revealed, but the truth had come too late. The ancient enemy was free, and only by uniting every species in the galaxy did they have any hope of stopping it. The news traveled fast across the galaxy. A human ship had somehow entered the Nexus quarantine zone and survived. This was impossible, but it had happened. Within days, every major government in the galaxy was talking about it. On the capital world of the Threnody hegemony, war leader Crathen Voss slammed his fist on the table during an emergency meeting. The Threnody looked like giant insects with hard shells and multiple arms. They had been enemies of humans for many years. This is clearly a new human weapon, he said to his officers. They have developed technology that can bypass the zone's defenses. This threatens the balance of power in the galaxy. On the other side of the galaxy, the leaders of the Vorthon Republic were having their own meeting. The Vorthons were peaceful traders who looked like tall, thin people with gray skin and large eyes. We must be careful, said Prime Minister Yendal Korth. If the humans have this technology, they could use it for war. We should ask the Galactic Council to quarantine them until we understand what they can do. The most important meeting was happening on the neutral world of Centrum, where the Galactic Council had their headquarters. High Arbiter Zenth Kvalan of the Meridian Confederation was leading an emergency session. The Meridians were an old and wise species that had helped create the Galactic Council many centuries ago. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from dozens of different species. They all wanted answers about the human ship in the Nexus Zone. The facts are simple, High Arbiter Zenth Kvalan said to the gathered delegates. The human ship Persistence has done something that should be impossible. We must determine if this represents a new threat or a new opportunity for all of us. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Hunwoo Seo was dealing with his own crisis. He was the head of the human colonial fleet, and suddenly every government in the galaxy was demanding explanations he didn't have. What do we know about the Persistence? He asked his staff in the fleet headquarters. It was a standard supply ship, said his aide, Captain Beomgyu Han. Nothing special about it. The crew was experienced but not exceptional. They were just doing a routine run to Colony 7. Dr. Yunji Nam, the fleet's top scientist, was studying all the data they had about the Persistence and its mission. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who understood space technology better than almost anyone. "Admiral," she said, "I've found something interesting. The Persistence had some modifications made to its quantum drive before it left Earth. They weren't in the official records." "What kind of modifications?" Admiral Hyunwoo Seo asked. "The work was done by an engineer named Do-hyun Lee. According to his notes, he was trying to improve the efficiency of the drive. But these changes are more complex than that. I think they might have affected how the ship travels through space." Back in the Nexus Zone, the crew of the Persistence was being questioned by a joint team from the Galactic Council. Commander Valith Karan had agreed to let Council investigators onto her ship to interview the humans. Captain Jinwoo Park sat in a small room across from 3 different aliens. One was a Kalani like Commander Velith Karan. Another was a Vorthon with gray skin. The third was a Myridian with golden fur and wise old eyes. "Tell us exactly what happened during your journey," the Myridian investigator said. His name was Senior Arbitrator Lendis Quaff, and he had been studying impossible events for over 200 years. "We followed our normal procedures," Jinwoo said. "We entered cryosleep after setting our course for Colony 7. When we woke up, we were here." "But your ship's logs show some inconsistencies," the Vorthon said. "There are gaps in the data that suggest your journey was not normal." Jinwoo frowned. "What kind of gaps?" The Kalani investigator, a female named Subcommander Yelta Vins, showed him a datapad. "Your ship's computer recorded some very strange readings during what should have been normal travel through hyperspace. Energy patterns that don't match anything in our databases." In another room, Minako was facing similar questions. But she had made a discovery that worried her greatly. While preparing for the interview, she had found more personal logs on her computer. Logs that she definitely did not remember making. "I need to hear these logs," she told the investigators. They played the recordings. Minako's own voice came from the speakers, but she sounded different. "Scared and confused. Day 3 of our journey," the recording said. "I'm seeing things that shouldn't be possible. The space around our ship is bending in ways that hurt to look at. Taeho Kim says the ship's instruments are detecting patterns that follow no known laws of physics. Captain Jinwoo Park is trying to stay calm, but I can see he's worried too." The real Minako stared at the device. "I don't remember saying any of that." "There's more," the Myridian investigator said. He played another recording. "Day 5, the voice continued. Dr. Soyeon Lim says something is happening to our bodies. Small changes that she can detect with her medical equipment. And I keep seeing shapes in the darkness outside our ship. They look like they're watching us. Taeho Kim calls them the Watchers, but none of us know what they are." Minako felt sick. "This is impossible. I would remember something like that." Meanwhile, Dr. Soyeon Lim was in the medical bay of the Kalani ship, working with their doctors to understand the genetic changes in the human crew. "These modifications are very subtle," the Kalani doctor said. His name was Healer Vorth Kellen, and he had studied many different species. "They affect the way your brain processes certain types of information. It's as if something has enhanced your ability to understand complex spatial relationships." "What does that mean?" Dr. Soyeon Lim asked. "It means your brains have been changed to better navigate spaces where normal physics don't apply," Healer Vorth Kellen said. "This might be why your ship could survive in the Nexus Zone." Taeho Kim was having the most disturbing interview of all. The investigators had found hidden files in the ship's computer system. Files that contained detailed scans of the ancient structures in the zone. "How did your ship's sensors gather this data?" Senior Arbitrator Lendis Quaff asked. "I don't know," Taeho Kim said honestly. "These scans are far more detailed than anything our equipment should be able to produce. It's like something else was helping us see." The files showed that the ancient structures were not dead ruins. They were still active, still powered by technology that was millions of years old. And according to the scans, they were definitely watching the human ship. "There's something else," Taeho Kim said quietly. "I found personal notes in my own files. Notes I don't remember writing. They talk about hearing voices in my head during our journey. Voices that spoke in a language I didn't understand, but somehow I knew what they meant." "What did they say?" the Vorthon investigator asked. Taeho Kim looked pale. "They said, 'Welcome home.'" The investigations continued for several days. Each new piece of information made the mystery deeper. The crew of the Persistence had clearly experienced things they couldn't remember. Their ship had been guided by forces they didn't understand. and something had changed them in ways they were only beginning to discover. High Arbiter Zenth Kavalin received reports from all the investigators. The picture they painted was impossible, but it was also undeniable. The humans had not just stumbled into the Nexus Zone by accident. Something had brought them there deliberately. "We need to understand what's really happening in that zone," he told his staff. "Because if the humans have made contact with whatever lives there, it could change everything we know about the galaxy." The Void Harvester moved through space like a living nightmare. As it approached, entire star systems began to dim. It was feeding on the energy of suns themselves, growing larger and stronger with each world it consumed. Captain Jinwoo Park stood on the bridge of the New Sol, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. The creature had destroyed 3 uninhabited systems in the past hour, and it was heading straight for the core worlds of the Galactic Council. "All ships, this is Captain Park," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We're facing an enemy that wants to consume our entire galaxy. Human, Kalani, Threnody, Vorthan, it doesn't matter to this thing. We're all just food to it." Commander Velith Koran's voice came over the communication system. "Captain Park, my government has authorized me to work with any species necessary to stop this threat. What do you need from us?" On the main screen, they could see ships from dozens of different species arriving in the Nexus Zone. The Threnody war fleets with their massive weapons, Vorthan science vessels with experimental technology. Even species that had never worked together before were putting aside their differences. War leader Krathen Voss of the Threnody had put aside his hatred of humans. "Human Captain," he said, "our weapons are at your disposal. Tell us how to fight this thing." But conventional weapons were useless against the Void Harvester. It existed partially outside normal reality, and energy beams and missiles passed through it without causing any damage. Dr. Soyeon Lim was working frantically with the Eternal Observers, trying to understand how to strengthen the zone's defenses. The ancient beings had appeared on every ship, their energy forms providing guidance to the living crews. "The creature feeds on the energy of living consciousness," the observers explained. "Physical weapons cannot harm it, but minds working together can create barriers it cannot cross. How do we create these barriers?" Admiral Hyunwoo Seo asked. "Your species has the unique ability to interface directly with our technology," the observers said, "but it requires a permanent connection. Those who join with our defenses cannot return to normal life." Taeho Kim understood immediately. "You're asking us to become like you, to give up our bodies and become part of the zone's defenses. The choice must be made freely," the observers said, "and it must be made by enough people to create a barrier strong enough to contain the Harvester." Captain Jinwoo Park looked at his crew. They had been through so much together, and now they faced the ultimate sacrifice. "How many people would it take?" he asked. "At least 50 minds," the observers replied. "And they must be human minds because your species is the only one capable of the necessary interface." Minako stepped forward. "Captain, I volunteer. I've been thinking about my lost memories and I realized something. I chose to do this before. The gaps in my memory aren't from the conspiracy. They're from times when I volunteered to interface with the zone's technology, and then had my memories suppressed so I could choose again, freely." Dr. Soyeon Lim ran a scan on Minako with her medical equipment. "She's right. There are traces in her brain of previous interfaces with the observer technology. She's done this before, multiple times. Why would you keep choosing to forget?" Taeho Kim asked. "Because the memories of being connected to the zone's defenses are overwhelming," Minako said. "Existing partially outside normal time and space, seeing all the possible futures, feeling the weight of protecting the entire galaxy. It's too much for a normal human mind to bear." The memory suppression was mercy. More volunteers came forward. Engineers from the human fleet, scientists from the research ships, even some of the officers who had been part of the secret conspiracy, trying to make up for what they had done. Commander Yuniko, Minako's sister, was among them. "I helped create this mess," she said. "Let me help fix it." But they were still short of the 50 volunteers needed. The Void Harvester was getting closer, and they could see its effects on the space around the zone. Reality itself was becoming unstable. Captain Jinwoo Park made his decision. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll join the interface." "Captain, no," Taeho Kim protested. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Jinwoo said firmly. And I won't ask others to sacrifice themselves if I'm not willing to do the same. Taiho Kim looked at his friend and captain, then nodded. If you're going, I'm going too. One by one, more volunteers came forward. Crew members from the Persistence, officers from the New Soul, even some aliens who had been modified to interface with the technology. Dr. Yoonji Nam worked with the observers to prepare the interface procedure. It would be done in the ancient structure where they had first made contact with the eternal observers. The process is irreversible, she warned the volunteers. Your consciousness will become part of the zone's defenses. You'll still be you, but you'll exist on a level beyond normal human experience. The volunteers gathered in the ancient structure. As they prepared for the interface, the Void Harvester reached the outer edge of the Nexus Zone. Reality warped and twisted around it as it tried to break through the ancient barriers. It's starting, the observers said. We must begin the interface now. One by one, the volunteers stepped into chambers filled with strange energy. Captain Jinwoo Park was the last to enter. As the energy surrounded him, he felt his consciousness expanding beyond his physical body. He could suddenly see the entire galaxy spread out before him like a map. He could feel the minds of his fellow volunteers joining with his, creating a network of consciousness that spanned the zone. Together, they reached out with their combined will and began to strengthen the barriers that contained the Void Harvester. The ancient defenses, powered by human determination and alien technology, began to push back against the creature from outside reality. The battle was fought not with weapons, but with pure force of will. The volunteers poured their life energy into the barriers, holding them strong even as the Void Harvester tried to break through. Slowly, the creature began to retreat. The barriers were too strong, the combined will of the Guardians too powerful for it to overcome. It withdrew into the spaces between dimensions, returning to its ancient prison. The galaxy was safe, but at a great cost. The volunteers had succeeded in their mission, but they were no longer entirely human. They existed as the new eternal observers. Their consciousness spread across the zone's quantum field. Captain Jinwoo Park found that he could still communicate with the outside world, but he experienced time and space differently now. He could see possible futures spreading out like branches on a tree. He knew that somewhere in the deep void, other Void Harvesters still waited for their chance to feed on the galaxy's light. Admiral Hyunwoo Seo established the Guardian Corps, a new branch of the human colonial fleet dedicated to protecting the Nexus Zone. Dr. Yoonji Nam continued her research into human quantum abilities, while engineer Do Yun Lee faced trial for his role in the conspiracy that had started it all. The Galactic Council officially recognized the Nexus Zone as humanity's responsibility. It was a great honor, but also a terrible burden. Humans would forever be the guardians of the galaxy's most dangerous prison. From his new existence as an observer, Captain Jinwoo Park watched over the zone and waited. He knew that the victory was not permanent. The creatures from the void were patient beyond mortal understanding, and they would try again someday. But when that day came, he and his fellow guardians would be ready. They had given up their humanity to save humanity, and they would not let that sacrifice be in vain. In the depths of space, beyond the reach of any telescope, ancient evils stirred in their prisons of twisted reality. The galaxy slept peacefully, protected by the vigilant minds of those who had chosen duty over life itself. The mystery of the human ship's arrival in the Forbidden Zone was finally solved. They had not stumbled there by accident or been led there by alien manipulation. They had been called there by destiny itself, to take up the eternal watch that would keep the darkness at bay for generations to come.